Welcome to another episode of Six Figure Secrets for Fractional Experts. My name is Bradley Jacobs. I'm your host, the founder and CEO of Mylance. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Glenn Poulos. Glenn is a veteran sales leader and entrepreneur, author of Never Sit in the Lobby. He co-founded Gap Wireless, scaled it into a leading tech distributor, and successfully exited twice. Now retired from day-to-day operations, he helps founders and teams sharpen their sales, simplify their systems, and win back their time. He's also a speaker, podcast guest, and LinkedIn top voice. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bradley. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, really excited to chat with you. And
Yeah, me too.
dive right in, I want to talk about your book. Let's just start there.
Sure.
So
Okay.
The title is kind of catchy, Never Sit in the Lobby. I've researched, but give our audience, what does that mean?
Yeah, what it means, it's one of the 57 tips that's contained in the book. The book is kind of a book of tips, right? And really, they're the rules that I learned along the way. I got into sales in 1985. Of course, I owned the sales companies along the way, but a salesman, sales manager, owner, this, that, but always sort of client-facing, customer-facing. And, I learned a bunch of things. And in the 80s, I started writing them down. And over the years, I started retelling them and making jokes about them and stories. And people were like, could you come tell these stories at our sales meeting? Which started doing that here and there. And then someone's like, oh, you should write a book. And of course, I never did. But in the pandemic, I had nothing else to do, being locked up. I decided that I was going to take my notebook of golden rules and see if I could get it into a book. And that's where the book came from. And the editor helped me pick a title, and it was one of the chapters, Never Sit in the Lobby. And what it means is that oftentimes, you go and you show up at a customer and you announce yourself, and then you go sit down, you pull out your phone, you start messing around. The wife starts sending you like the shopping list for after work, and you get all distracted. And then a customer comes in and he's like, hey, are you Glenn? And you're like, and it's just not a good look. And so I tell people, when you get to the lobby, show up on time, a few minutes early. Early is on time is late. And then just don't sit down, right? Like, don't go looking at the wall with all their plaques. Don't pick up their magazines. Don't get on the phone. Just be waiting. And so that you can greet the customer as they walk in, and you're ready and you're prepared and you're standing up and you're at attention, right? And, and there's another rule that follows immediately after, which is always have something in your hand and something in your mind. The customer comes in, you want to give them something and you want to ask them something, right? And those are just two of the 57 rules, right? And so that's what the Never Sit in the Lobby means. It was one of the catchy ones, so that's what became the title.
Right? Yeah, it certainly is catchy. So when we think about, because I remember 10 years ago, I was a management consultant, and yeah, we'd go into our, I have the exact visual of what you're talking about, right? Like go into the headquarters and sit down. Okay. These days, so much of what happens is virtual, right? It's so much remote, and it's LinkedIn, and it's Zoom. And
I love this question.
Is there an equivalent don't sit in the lobby for like the current?
Yeah, there is.
What is that?
There is. Don't not sit in the lobby, which is like, because guess what? The guy's getting the orders in the lobby, right? You're the one that's doing it virtually. The winners are not doing it that way. I always challenge people. I say, look, imagine you become super successful and you pull $50 million out of your business and you're going to buy a jet. And I said, and there's two jet salesmen. One of the jet salesmen picks you up in a Bugatti, drives you to the airport, wines and dines you. The flight attendants come down, off the G5 or whatever it is, and walk you introduce you to the pilot and the co-pilot, pour you some champagne, give you some hors d'oeuvres, sit you down, fly you to Miami, give you lunch, specs, and tell you everything on the way. And then they fly you home, they Bugatti you back to your house and whatever. The other guy, he does it on Zoom, and he virtually picks you up, and you're, at home, right? And he virtually drives you to the airport and meet everyone virtually. And the pilot, they all fly to Miami and have lunch without you. But of course, you're all there on Zoom, right? Which one of you guys thinks is getting the order, right? And the reality is, take 50 million and make it a $5 million, piece of capital equipment. Make it a $500,000 piece of infrastructure. Make it a $50,000 system that you're buying, or even 5,000. It doesn't matter. The point is, you always want to try to get in front of the customer. If you're on Zoom, and the Never Sit in the Lobbies are like, always have your camera on, always be at attention, keep away the distractions, and still you need something in your hand and something in your mind. You want to like maybe send them something, an attachment. You want to play them a video or something to capture their attention and get them into the space, right? And that's where, I have another thing called the punch, perfect pitch, and close, right? And that's where it's a way of presenting to customers where you punch, perfect pitch, and then you close, right? And the punch is to change their state. And you can do it virtually, and you can also do it at their facility, right? And again, that by now that I'm going to tell you to do it on site if you can. But if you can't, you need to basically change their state, right? Because so often these presentations, they start with boring shit. They basically start, let me show you, we have a factory in England with 1,200 people, and our head office is in Germany where we have over 3,000. You're already asleep. The guy's already checking email, right? So whether he's on Zoom or whether he's sitting across the boardroom table from you, you need to capture attention and you need to connect with the customer, right? And that's where these rules were born from, because and most of the time I learned these things by losing for not doing them. And so the whole crux behind the book was how to get, act, and stay in front of your customer and to be a pleasure to do business with always. It's this unwritten subtitle of the book. And it's like, well, what do you mean be a pleasure to do business with always? I'm like, don't be a pain in the ass, right? Just don't be a shitty salesman, especially when you lose the deal, right? Because if you're selling high-end stuff, you may have a chance to go back and they may never want you in again because you misbehaved, like losing the last deal. Some of the nicest comments that I've ever heard about myself over the years were from my competitors in competing with me and whatever, right? And just the way I attend to this kind of like impression and that you put upon people, right? Yeah. And so, but again, inside the book and inside my philosophies and whatever are a bunch of rules to protect me from those things, right? Like it's not a one-way street. I'm not saying, lose the order and then be a nice guy and take them out to dinner. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm actually saying is, like, for instance, sometimes, you go into a deal and maybe you didn't make a call at the beginning, and then all of a sudden you realize you got to make a call. So you fly to Denver or whatever to see this guy, which you should have maybe done originally, but you didn't because you said you could do it over Zoom. And so then you go there, right? And you show up in the lobby and Glenn says, hey, never sit in the lobby. So I'm not sitting in the lobby and I wait for the guy to show up. And he shows up. So I got something in my hand, something in my mind. And then I ask him the next rule. The next rule is always ask for a mini tour, right? The guy says, no problem. Let me give you a mini tour of where your equipment's going to go, or where your system's being installed, or where your software is going to run, or the people that's going to be using it, or whatever. And he takes you and he opens the door to lead you behind the wall of the lobby. And you notice that every third person has a shirt on that says IBM or Dell or Microsoft, and you work for Apple, right? And you realize that they got 9 systems from Microsoft or Apple or Dell or whatever, and you're the other guy, and you're quoting them on one of these systems or whatever, right? And you realize you're just the guy that's going to keep the other guy honest, right? There's no way they're going to be doing a forklift overlay of one Apple system on top of 9 Microsoft, right? It's just not going to happen. You would have figured that out if you had gone there in the first place, gotten the mini tour, got behind the door, etc. And then you can do my next rule, which is I'd rather be last than second, right? So I like to lose quickly, because when you come in second, you're just really the number one loser, right? So what I do is I try to lose quickly if I'm going to. So at any moment in time where I realize unequivocally through some deduction of information that without a doubt I know there's no way I can win, at that moment I quit working for that person. And I graciously back away and stop doing anything, right? For instance, I show up and I'm, Apple, Microsoft, whatever, right? And I realize there's 9 systems, I'm not getting the business. And then they go, you know what, can you install a system for like 8-week trial? And I'm like, sure, no problem. Our stuff's backed up. We got orders out till Christmas. We can install one next February. And they're like, no. We need one in 2 weeks in order to do this thing and whatever. I'm sorry. Like the soonest we could get a system in here would be January. Maybe, but probably more like February or whatever, right? And I'm just making this up as we talk here, right? But what my point is that I'm not going to install a system where I know I'm not getting the deal, and so I just stop participating, and then I follow my next tip, my next rule, which is run to the next customer, right? And so while Microsoft is there fighting off Apple's and other companies that are trying to get the business, and they're installing systems for a 2 month trial, knowing they should not be doing it, I run to the next client and I try to lock them down with my systems while everyone else is busy fighting over this one, right? And that's what I do with my time. And I do it nicely and politely and whatever. And this is just the way the rules kind of all flow together.
So you've been in sales for a long time, right? Decades. And things have changed so much in the landscape of business, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
technology and AI and COVID changed a lot of things and on down the line. What are things that have not changed that like since 40 years of doing sales or whatever that has not changed over that period of time?
The one thing that immediately comes to my mind is something that has both changed and not changed, right? So it's kind of ironic in a way. My answer is in somewhat ironic. Okay. So what's not changed is like the real guys that do the business and get the business buy from people. Like Bob, the vice president of finance, who's talking to SAP about a system or whatever. Like he's talking to the guy at SAP and he's having lunch with him and he's known him for 10 years. And when he calls, the cell phone numbers are programmed in and they know it's Bob from SAP. And what's changed is the guy at the plant who's buying something won't pick up the cell phone to anyone he doesn't know. Like if you're not in his cell phone, you call his cell phone, doesn't know, he doesn't answer it, right? You call his desk phone, his voicemail, he never checks it, right? You send him an email, he looks at his email every day and he says, what are emails can I look at here and delete and not get fired? This one, this one, this one, and this one. Boom. Every time you get deleted because he knows he's not going to get fired for deleting some email from some company that they don't work with. It's not paid to be solicited. So you can't get him on email. You can't get him on the direct line. You can't get him on the cell phone. What has changed is that before you could phone people and they would answer the phone. And so even if you knew them or didn't know them, you had an equal likelihood of being answered. But now it's quite the different. I know you know this to be true because your cell phone rings all day and you never answer it, right?
Sure.
What happens is that, for instance, I mentioned Oracle earlier because Oracle's like sort of chasing me. They want me to forklift upgrade my ERP system in the new company that I bought and whatever. And I'm using a different system and they change people a lot in their business development. And so I don't have their cell phone numbers in my phone. So when they call from like a 212, a 617, I just say, Boston, I don't know anyone in Boston. Delete. What I suggest you have to do is you have to come at them from 7 different angles, right? So he calls my cell phone and he leaves a voicemail, which he knows I may or may not even listen to, right? But I have visual voicemail, so I might see Oracle. So it's Bob from Oracle. So again, don't start with, oh, hi, it's Bob. I hope you're having a great day. Just wanted to check in with you. It's Bob from Oracle. I'm not going to listen to get to Oracle. And then he sends an email, right? And then he follows it up where he might even mail me something. And then in a series of repetitive where he has to break through the melee of like obstacles I've created for him to finally get the point where, at least from a personal perspective, like if the guy from Oracle gets through 6 or 7 hurdles, I'm probably going to pick up just because I feel sorry for him in a way, right? That's where the magic starts to happen. And then all of a sudden, now there's a dialogue and I can, personally, when with salespeople, I'm very honest with them and I'll tell them, look, like I might buy your thing later, but not now, or, but you're competing against this and that and the whatever. It's not like I make it all be a guessing game. I'm 100% transparent. And eventually over time, for instance, if it's the Oracle guy, I get to know the guy, of course, right? And then I'm buying from somebody that I know. And it's the same thing with things that get bought over and over again. Guys buying motor oil for some generator or something or whatever, and he buys Quaker State, and the Quaker State rep drops in every month and brings donuts and and this and that, whatever. The Quaker State guy can get in front of him at any point in time and show him whatever Quaker State's got to sell in addition to oil treatment, oil cleaning, oil cleanup stuff, oil storage, oil cooling, oil heating, whatever products Quaker State makes. This guy can bring in the factory reps, from Quaker State at any moment. But the guy works for Pennzoil. Good luck, right? And I'm picking all these different random products because people are like, oh, that won't work for me because I sell HR software, right? Or I sell widgets, or I sell oil, or I sell jets, or it always holds true.
What I'm hearing you say is the end of the day, people buy from people they know.
Yeah.
right? It's like as simple as that, right? Become someone
Yeah.
that your client knows, and they're
Right.
more likely to at least give you the time of day, hear from you, and
Right.
potentially buy from you.
Yeah.
You're a LinkedIn top voice, right? You invest in LinkedIn, you show up on LinkedIn. How does that tie into this principle of becoming someone that you know or the client knows?
Well, one thing about LinkedIn is like there's this, need that you got to be like super genuine, right? Because I mean,
Mm.
now AI, which I'm doing a lot of research and development on AI, how you can deploy it and what have you. And I'm using it myself, of course, and whatever. And everybody's telling me that, they can do my call setting for me. They can do all my engagements. And I can't remember what it was, but I got like engaged by an AI thing on something, but it was one dimensional, the product, right? Like I wish I could remember what it was, but I mean, but the things that I sell are like, I barely even understand them myself. I need the factory engineers to help me explain it. And how do you engage with a guy who has that same level of technical acumen with AI? It's like very, very difficult, right? And so the point is, when you're using LinkedIn, it's not about volume. You need to like use all the tools that are available to isolate down to the exact right person that's appropriate for whatever it is you sell, right? And there's a secondary rule, which hopefully I'll remember to tell you in a second. But I mean, and so in the sense that, like, let's say that it's the finance man, maybe the controller. It's not the VP of finance, not the CFO. It's the director of finance or whatever that buys the kind of stuff you sell. Then focus on that. Don't be like spamming the CFO, saying like, "Oh, can I get a few minutes to bug you about something or whatever?" Right? If your thing costs $1 million and the CFO is the one that's going to sign off on it, then you need to start with the CFO and focus on that particular relationship. There's quite a soliloquy in the book on that whole thing about approaching the right person first. And I turned it into kind of a funny story or whatever, but about selling, forklifts, tow motors, and calling the CFO, a CEO, and the guy's telling me, what are you talking about? Like, I don't care about forklifts, right? Talk to my vice president of warehousing, right? And so call the vice president of warehousing and saying, oh, I was talking to Bob, the CEO. He said I should give you a call. But what? Forklifts. He goes, forklifts? I don't care about forklifts. Talk to my head of my head of warehousing or whatever, right? And I call the head of warehousing. And he's like, I don't care about forklifts. Call the foreman, right? And the foreman's like, don't talk to me about forklifts. You need to talk to the movement manager or whatever, right? And the point is, though, is that at the end of the day, these forklifts cost $120,000, and in the company that I'm selling to, I know the CEO has to sign it. It's not like I'm not selling to a Fortune 500 company, a $1 billion corp. I'm selling to a company where 120 grand is make or break. Like, it's like I always start, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on the phone or whatever it is, at the highest possible, and then let them kick me down the stack so that I can always climb back up the stack at any point. And I can say, hey, look, I took your advice. I called the VP, the da 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 da. The unit's in trial. I know you got to sign off on this. It's here for the day. Can you give me 2 minutes, pop down, have a look at this tow motor? This thing's running circles around the tow motors you've got in the warehouse right now. 2 minutes later, the CEO's in the warehouse. Everyone's like shaking their head, going, "What just happened?" Because I need to call him later to get the deal. The shitty sales guy, boss says, "What's going on with the deal?" And he goes, "Oh, they sent it upstairs. I talked to the warehouse manager, and I think we're in good shape." And I'm like, "Oh, where's the deal?" And he's like, "Oh, they sent it upstairs to the powers that be." Right? I'm like, what are the powers that be? I don't know. They just said they didn't know. I asked them that, and they don't know who the powers that be are. Well, the powers that be are the manager, the director, the senior manager, the vice president, senior vice president, CFO, then the CEO. Those are everyone. And if it's 120 grand or $1 million system or whatever, it's all going to go through that chain and whatever stop wherever it needs to. And it's only the people that invest in learning these things and doing that. And most people are lazy and they don't do it.
The majority of the audience listening to this is either an independent consultant, a fractional
Yep.
executive, right? Business of one. They're selling their services. They're selling what they do. Some also founders and entrepreneurs listen as well, but it's a
Yep.
lot of it, right? And so I'm thinking about how this applies to the independent consultant that's selling a $20,000 a month retainer for marketing services or fractional CFO.
So what they have to do is they have to say, and in my new business, I'm all in on fractional, right? Everything's fractional, everyone's fractional because it's small. And so, but I learned from my last company that was not fractional and that was not small, that I needed all the right people in the right seats, right? And me in every seat is a recipe for disaster, right? Because I know just enough to be dangerous in every seat in the business: sales, ops, finance, IT, marketing, etc. The fractional guy that's selling 20 grand a month retainer or whatever has to look at that business and say, this business that I'm calling, who signs the checks for 20 grand? And if she doesn't know who that is, then they most likely probably won't get the business.
Right.
And of course, if it's, a fractional guy, girl selling to a one-man show, then obviously it's pretty obvious, right? What's going on. But that's typically not the market. They're trying to sell to companies that have some modicum of number of people, and they need to figure that out, and they need to start with that person. And then they need to come up with the punch perfect pitch and close, right? First of all, they can download the whole guide to doing a punch perfect pitch and close from my website for free and whatever, and they can help come up with their own that works for them. One of the other rules in the book is the power of three, right? And so mild, medium, hot, good, better, best, that kind of a thing, right? Small, medium, large. Everything has to be broken up into the power of three because that's magical. It's magical. I don't know why. Like, I didn't make it up. I just followed the rule, right? And so essentially, you have to figure out, where are they now and where are you going to take them? Yeah. And through the series of three succinct things, take them from where they are to how dealing with you will take them to there. And the punch is usually either something just to get their attention or something to show someone else already in the state they want to be in, right? Like a video of the perfect marketing campaign for the company that's, like for like or whatever kind of a thing, right? And say, this is where you can be after, 3 months with Jack's outsourced marketing or whatever, right? And fractional is no different than a 1,000-person company. It's still somebody signing off on it. And if you call the marketing people, they're probably not going to want to buy from you because they're going to be worried about their job, right? I mean, you want to be maybe talking to the CFO or something like that, right? And I mean, after having several successful sales, they've probably figured out who they move the needle for more than anyone out of business, and that's where they want to start. If they're in New York and the customer's in LA, then obviously they're not going to go stand in the lobby and not sit in the lobby. But at some point, if the deal's big enough, at some point they might need to, right? Yeah. And if the competitor's in the lobby, then you better be in the lobby.
I know in the book you talk about successful digital outreach, like really making it count. And I'm curious if you're willing to share whether it's, specific, like a line or tactic in whether it's an email or LinkedIn message that you seem to be the most effective and it's kind of like tried and true over the test of time.
One, you need to have your targeting on point, right? So most of the times it's not about quantity, it's about the quality and the accuracy, right? It has to be personalized. It needs to be short and to the point, in my opinion, right? And so you need to be sharing the value first, right? In terms of, you need to share some kind of an insight or some kind of a win or something that they can get. I know I'm not directly maybe answering the question. I'm trying to answer in a roundabout way because it's what builds the magical digital outreach, right? Mm-hmm. But, share an insight or something or a win that it makes it about them and not about you or, not some braggadocious thing. You need to think of it in a multi-targeted approach where it's not just LinkedIn. It has to be LinkedIn, it has to be email. You have to know how to make the phone call and, shameless plug. There are scripts in the book for like phone things and whatever, right? But I mean, in short though, like when you leave a voicemail, it's always like never less than 20 seconds, never more than 30 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and there's all these little rules, right? When you get them on the phone, like don't ask them how they are. I say, hey, Bob, it's Glenn from Acme. Hope you're doing well. I'd like 15 seconds to explain to you how I can improve your productivity by 25%. Deploying, robots in your, in the outer space or whatever, right? Like, and the point is it all comes out very quickly in one breath. I don't care how he is. That's why I just hope he's doing well. right? Because if I say, oh, hey, Bob, it's Glenn, how are you? And he's like, I hate you. That's my number one thing. I'm all right, I guess. How are you? And then I do the kiss of death after they say that, which is like, oh, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. I hate it when people say that to me. I most of the time when salespeople say that to me, I actually school them on how annoying it is. I
So
said,
you
talk
want
to your
them just to
people.
get to the point, right? Is that what you're
Obviously.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're talking to the. Remember, I told you got to start with the guy who's signing the check. He's dealing with a
Busy.
million things that day,
Yeah. He's busy.
right? And so you want strong, and again, you want strong like subject lines and things like that. And the magic number is 7, right? It takes 5 to 7, magically 7 to make it happen. When you quit at 6, that's why you failed.
And that's where I want everyone listening who feels annoying after 2, 3, 4 touches to just let that go.
Right. And remember, don't do 6 of the same thing, right? Like you're doing phone call, then you're doing an email, then you're doing a mail thing, right? Then you're doing, maybe you're doing a door hanger for all I know, right? Then you're phoning them back, right? And then you're emailing them again. And you're often referencing it, right? It's like, oh, I called, I left you that voicemail, I said I'd follow up with an email, that kind of thing. And then the email, and if he ever listens to the email and then he sees, Glenn twice in a row, now I've got my 2 little things in there, right? And then,
Sure.
and then I just keep trying to work it in. This won't work for the fractional people because they're not calling on the same customer over and over again. But I mean, a lot of the people that I talk to, they're dealing with the territory, and the territory has accounts, and the accounts they're not one and done. They're repetitive, right? Like, and so you go in and you learn people, and you use the people that you know to get to the people that you don't know. And so I've really been trying to get a hold of Bob. Thanks for seeing me today. It was great to have my mini tour of the new thing. I'll get back to you with that stuff. Is there any way you could run me by Jack's desk so I can drop a piece of literature off and you pray that Jack's there? And they say, Jack, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to pounce on you, but I just, these guys in the back can't get enough of my shit. Can I get 5 minutes on your calendar next week when I'm back in here, servicing the rest of your company who loves me, right? And you've got all this social proof that builds up around it. He's standing there with the other guy, and he's like, oh, yeah, Glenn's awesome. We love him and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And then you say, okay, cool, let me get 5 minutes. How about next Thursday? I'm here anyways, which you're not, but you say you are. And then, Thursday morning, you already know you got one appointment, 5 minutes with Jack, the decision maker, in a different department. Then you call everyone else at that business, and you fill the entire morning visiting that customer. The other golden rule is if you're not sitting in the lobby, what are you doing? Well, if you want to be early, and so you sit in your car. And when you're in your car, you pull out your phone, which is called the call book factor because that's where this started back in the 80s. But now it's a phone or a laptop or a tablet. And you call up your customer, Acme, distributing or whatever you're calling on that day. And you look at every name of person you've ever met and you remember their face before you walk in the door. And if you don't remember their face, go to LinkedIn and look at their face and remember it. Because when you're getting dropped off at Jack's desk, you're going to bump into Sally, and Sally remembers you from 2 years ago when you sold her the whatever. And she's like, oh, Glenn, good to see you. And you're like, oh, and all of a sudden she realizes you forgot her name. You never recover from that. It's a bad look. And I never do bad look. That's why I always remember their name. And so as I'm walking through the building, getting the new guy to drop me at Jack's desk, I'm like, hey, Bob, hey, Sally, hey, George. And this guy, holy shit, this guy knows everybody. Yeah. And again, it's another layer of social proof. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I love that Glenn guy. He always remembers my name, right? People love that. Yeah. And in the end of the day, you become a pleasure to do business with.
Yeah, the last point I want to hit on, and you talk about this a lot, is how you present yourself, right? Your energy, your posture, verbal style, it's important. I would love for you to just elaborate on how people can do that. What are the most important pieces to get right as they are presenting themselves to potential clients?
The first thing I want to say is like how to think about presenting yourself, getting ready to make a call, organizing calls. None of that's fun, right? For some reason, while you're doing all that stuff that you hate doing, you dread making the call for some reason. But when you get there, it's the best part of your day. So when you finally get in front of a customer, it's like being on stage, right? It's like being on a Broadway play or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're like in the dressing room. You might be a curmudgeon, or you might be a nice person, or you might be whatever. It doesn't matter. But when you're on the stage performing Les Mis, you're Jean Valjean or whatever his name is, right? Like that's your role. Like your role is to be in character. You want to be presenting a genuine positive nature about it. You don't want to be phony, but you you want to have your in front of customers character that you play, right? Which can be different than how you are at home. You need to learn how to present. You need how to be conversational and not scripted. A lot of it comes from learning the skills of conversation, which is like active listening and building rapport and things like that. Because where the really lousy parts come from is when you're not doing that. Like when you all of a sudden start in this like dialogue of like, oh, I'm here from such and we're so and we're 20 pounds big and we're 10 feet long and we're this and we're that and whatever. Like nobody cares about it. It's like if you want a magic bullet, one of my favorite things, it's not in the book. It's when you sort of bump into someone at either a networking event, you're at a customer visit, or some kind of a situation, and you're kind of stuck, right? And so what you do is you follow the watch your weekend problem modality or whatever, right? And so it's called watch your weekend problem. And you say it that way so you can remember it. Watch your weekend problem. It's actually three different things, okay? The watch is you look at their watch and you say, nice watch. What's the story behind the watch, right? And if you don't have a nice watch, if it's just an Apple Watch or whatever, you could say, cool Apple Watch. Is that the new one or whatever? And, or maybe they have a bracelet or a brooch or a necklace or something, right? So you say that, and it definitely puts people off guard. Like they're not used to that, right? And usually, if it's not an Apple Watch and it's a regular watch, there's usually a story behind it.
Yeah.
I got it for my graduation. I got it for 40 years of work. My wife gave it, my husband gave it, whatever, this, that, the other, right? And then you say, you know what? When you're not at work, the weekend rolls around. What do you do? What do you do for fun? And not everybody loves the question, but usually they'll tell you like I either golf or I do nothing. I play video games. I play pickleball. I swim. I snorkel. I do whatever, right? But the thing is, and then you ask genuine questions. You don't want to be harping on it or whatever. But now you've asked watch. You asked about the watch. You've asked about the weekend. So you've actually broken down a whole bunch of internal barriers at this point. They don't realize it, but this works really well. Mm-hmm. And then you say to them, you know what? Okay, so you've spent the weekend as a 4.0 pickleball player. You dominated the courts. Monday morning rolls around. Share with me what the biggest problem you face at work is. What's the biggest challenge you're facing this week or this month or this year at your company or whatever? What's the biggest problem? What's the biggest challenge? What keeps you up at night? And he's like, too much headcount, not enough headcount, poor quality, can't, low productivity, lousy throughput, test results suck, whatever. It doesn't, a million things, whatever it is, right? Obviously, you're there talking to a manager of something, right? And he's going to tell you something related to that thing. And you're a fractional guy selling fractional stuff to solve that guy's problems, right? That's kind of like a way of getting that information from him. And then, your instinct would be, when he says, my biggest problem, like, because you said a marketing fractional guy, right? He says, my biggest problem is like my SEO or whatever, right? I'm just making this up. And you don't say, we do amazing SEO. Like, don't say that, right? Say, oh, like, tell me more, right? Like, and keep asking questions. And there's a chapter on active listening. It's an exercise to play with your partner, your spouse, or whatever, on how to learn how to listen actively. And when you read it, when you try it the first time, it's like painful. It's like torture doing it. And you're like, this would never work, right? But they go home and I say, just do it, just try it. And they do it. And then their wife says, wow, like we haven't talked like this, in years. I challenge people, try it and see what active listening can do for you, because you're never saying anything. You're only inquiring, you're echoing back, and you're relaying off what they say, right? The blueprint on how to do it is in there.
Reminds me of the Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Have you read that book?
Yes,
yeah,
one
of my favorites, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're about out of time. Where can people find you? I'm sure LinkedIn is a good place. whether they
That's
want to
really
get
the
in touch.
best place. I'm there every day, and I'll, if they reach out to me, I'll answer them. And they can go to my website to download the Punch Perfect Pitch and Close. Obviously, if they want to buy the book, they can. There's no pressure, but I'll gladly let them buy it if they want it. And you can get that anywhere books are sold, in any format they're sold in. I have an audio book I narrated, and ebooks, audiobooks, everything, whatever you
Nice.
need, hardcover, softcover, and yeah,
Cool. All right. We'll put all the links as well in the show notes. We'll grab your website and
awesome.
LinkedIn and all that. So
Yeah,
everyone
cool.
can access it easily. And Glenn, just really appreciate you being on the show and sharing the
Yeah,
wisdom
thanks. Yeah,
all around sales with us.
yeah. Thanks for having me, Bradley.